If there's one thing that annoys me, it's a noisy bike. And if there's one noise that annoys me more than any other noise, it's a creak. And if there's one creak that annoys me more than any other creak, it's a creaking fork. So why has every single set I've owned over the past few years eventually developed a creak? And why haven't suspension brands figured this out yet? As you might have guessed from the intro, this video is going to be about creaking forks. I was inspired to make this one after the Fox 36 I was running on my Norco Sight started making a horrendous creaking and cracking sound. Just have a listen to this. And that's not the only fork I've owned which has started to creak after what felt like an unreasonably short amount of time. I've gone through all my past bikes, and to the best of my knowledge, the only fork I've owned that hasn't started creaking was a 2008 coil-sprung RockShox pike. Maybe they made things a bit better back then, or maybe I'm just unlucky, but based on a light bit of internet research, I am not the only person who's been struggling with noisy forks. Before we get into the meat of this video, I want to do a little bit of audience research. So if you've struggled with a creaking fork in the past, please let me know about it in the comments down below. I think this is a problem that affects all brands equally, but it'd be good to get some individual riders' perspectives on the issue. So if you've had a noisy fork, please leave a comment with a manufacturer and the model down below, and let's see if any trends emerge. Also, if you're enjoying this video, why not like and subscribe? Cheers. So, why do forks creak? It essentially boils down to how your steerer is attached to your stanchions. The bit that goes in between them is called a crown, and the steerer and the stanchions are fitted into the crown with a press fit. It's because of that press fit, and because the steerer and the stanchions and the crown are made of different materials with different finishes, that creaks can occur. Now, I'm not smart enough to fully understand the engineering or the science behind this, but essentially because of the repeated impacts that forks are subjected to, and in particular long travel single crown forks, over time some slippage can occur between these upper parts of the fork that manifests itself as a creaking sound, and a very annoying creaking sound at that. Considering it's 2025 and we have basically every mountain bike gadget we could wish for literally just a click away, how come we haven't got forks that don't start creaking after a tiny little bit of hard riding? Maybe the new breed of upside down forks will help remedy these issues, but from what I've heard, I think they might have their own set of problems. Based on the research I've done, every single brand, with the exception of one, has recognised that creaking can occur with their forks. So that's all the way at the top with the big dogs like Fox and RockShox, all the way down to smaller brands like EXT and DVO. The only exception is Intend. They claim to have fully eliminated creaking in their forks, and the solution they found is surprisingly simple. But we'll get onto that more a little bit later on. I should probably say at this point it's actually quite easy to misdiagnose a creaking fork, as there's a fair few things at the front of your bike that could be making a creaking sound. So a really easy way to check if it's your forks that are creaking is to turn your bike upside down, remove your front wheel and axle, apply a little bit of pressure to your handlebars, probably with your feet, and then give the lowers of your fork a really good twist. If you hear any sort of cracking, pops, creaking, then unfortunately there's probably an issue between the press fit of your steerer into your crown or your stanchions into your crown, and you're going to need to look at remedying this. If you don't hear any creaking or cracking, it could still be an issue with the press fit interfaces into your crown, but it could also be an issue with your headset, your handlebars, your stem, your front axle, or your front hub. So give all of those components a good grease and a once over, and hopefully that will resolve any creaking or cracking you've got at the front end of your bike, and you won't have to resort to fixing your fork. But if it is your fork making that creaking sound, here's some ideas on how to fix it. So perhaps the most obvious way to fix a creaking fork is just to buy a new one. Now, I appreciate that is incredibly wasteful and very expensive, but it is pretty much guaranteed to work. I know most forks don't start creaking within the first 6 to 12 months of use, so you'd probably get many happy miles before that fork started getting noisy. While we're on the subject of timeframes and noisy forks, if you typically get a new bike every season, you might be wondering what this whole video is about, as you may never have experienced a noisy or creaking fork. But for all the pros like me who are used to keeping one bike running over multiple seasons, you're probably much more likely to have experienced this issue. Anyway, now we've got the nuclear option out of the way of how to fix a creaking fork, here's some more reasonable and more affordable fixes. Suspension service centres will typically offer a solution to creaking forks, be that removing the steerer and installing a new one, or pressing out the stanchions from the crown and reinstalling them with some kind of setting compound. If your fork is still within warranty, definitely look into this option. Service centres will be well used to dealing with the warranty process of noisy forks, and you might even get a new set of forks out of it. I understand it can be frustrating to be without a functioning bike while you're jumping through the hoops of the warranty process, but if you're lucky enough to actually have a warranty, definitely look into this. If, like me, you don't have a warranty on your forks because they are old and second-hand, this next fix is for you. So earlier in the video I mentioned that Intend had figured out a way to resolve creaking in all of their forks, and that solution is surprisingly simple. It's Loctite. So Intend actually apply Loctite during the manufacturing process, so before the steerer and the stanchions are pressed into the crown, they will first have Loctite applied to them. And apparently that solves creaking in all of their forks, but I'm going to have to take their word for it because I don't think I've ever even seen an Intend fork out on the trail. But I do think they know what they're talking about. For the home mechanic, it's probably a little bit unrealistic that you'll have all the tools to remove your steerer and stanchions from your crown, smother them in Loctite and then jam them back together. But there is a Loctite product that can help you, and that product is Loctite 638. Now this specific Loctite is designed for bonding cylindrical fitting parts in the absence of air, i.e. the interface between your crown and steerer or your crown and stanchions. To use this product to try and fix your creaking forks, simply turn your bike upside down, give your forks a really good clean, and then apply this Loctite to the joins between your steerer and your crown and your stanchions and your crown. Leave it to set for 24 hours, wipe off any excess, and hopefully that should have fixed your creaking fork. Because this Loctite only sets in the absence of oxygen, it works by seeping its way into the microscopic gaps between the surfaces of your fork and bonds them together. Also, if you're going to do this, please be aware this Loctite is quite spicy stuff, so do be careful not to get any onto your frame as it can eat away at your paint, and also probably don't get any on your skin either because it's quite nasty stuff. Now if that sounds like way too much effort, there is actually an even easier fix, and that is to do absolutely nothing about your creaking fork and just run it into the ground. A noisy fork isn't inherently dangerous, and the noise itself isn't going to affect the performance of the fork. So if you have the mental capacity to simply ignore a creaking fork and ride as hard as you want, then more power to you. I've not reached that level of mountain bike zen yet, and I likely never will. And it is for that reason, and that reason alone, that I have ended up with a new fork. As I mentioned earlier, my Fox 36 was making some really horrible noises, and despite me trying the Loctite fix multiple times, it never fully fixed the issue and the creak would always eventually return. So naturally I turned to Facebook Marketplace, and that's where I spotted this absolute bargain. The fork in question is an SR Suntour Duralux 38 Evo with 170mm of travel. I first became aware of this fork after a review of it popped up a little while ago on Pinkbike, which seemed really positive. You don't see many SR Suntour products out in the wild, and I was a little bit surprised when this one popped up completely unused on Facebook Marketplace. I'd actually already been eyeing up one of these forks for a review, as they seem to offer a lot of performance for a relatively low cost. Also, I wanted to try out some suspension components that weren't made by Fox or RockShox. I'd actually already been chatting to the SR Suntour distributor in New Zealand who had offered me the same model of fork at a discounted rate, but then this one popped up on Facebook Marketplace even cheaper. So naturally, a deal was done, and 500 New Zealand dollars later, the fork was mine. I didn't think I'd appreciate the extra stiffness that 38mm stanchions can offer, but I've been riding this fork for just over 3 weeks now, and I've been really impressed with the precision of this chassis. A full and detailed review of the fork will be coming up soon, but initial impressions are very, very good. And I think that's going to be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching if you've got this far. If you've had a creaking fork, please let me know about it in the comments down below. And if you have any fixes for a creaking fork that I haven't mentioned, please also drop them down below, because I might have missed something that could actually help out a load of people. Other than that, we've got some really exciting videos coming up. I've got a very fancy bike in for review at the moment. We've got the aforementioned review of those SR Suntour forks, and we might be getting a nice set of wheels soon to review as well. So exciting things are coming up on the channel. But that's all for today. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.